hopefully my message is just meaningful and you get something out of it tonight. So, first of all, I'm honored to have been asked to be your speaker for the evening. I truly appreciate the opportunity to be here and hope that, again, you take this chance to listen to my perspective on what it means to have meaningful inclusion in the industry as it relates to women and diversity for that matter. So hopefully each of you also are just excited to be here amongst some of the most meaningful members of our construction industry. Excited to see so many women in the room. Oftentimes when I'm on the job site or even in my department, I'm one of few women. In our department, there's 2 of us. And so it warms my heart to see that there are so many other women within the industry engaged and able to bring something to the table. Women have been known to be the backbone of our households for quite some time, and so it's just really nice to have that same meaningful space in our construction industry, hopefully bringing that same energy into our construction companies that we work for. So I feel like through my experience, I've been able to really find my seat at the table in construction. I've been able to grow from being someone who had no idea what construction was to being someone who I would consider to be knowledgeable and hopefully a great resource to a lot of the people that I know. So my question to you tonight is, how did you find your seat at the table in construction, and what does it mean to you to get that? So many of you probably, over the years, as you started as a child, figured out, what careers were you interested in? What was it that gained what was it that started your interest in whatever it may be that you're doing today, or the things that you were exposed to from being a child all the way through becoming an adult? And so for me, through my youthful years, I'll tell you that my career choice changed a multitude of times from being a young child all the way through being an adult. And so that career interest was sparked by interactions with people, role models, or things that I just saw that were interesting as I, again, went from being a child to an adult. Does that sound familiar to any of you? Did everyone know what they wanted to do when they were, 5 years old, yay high, before becoming an adult? No. Probably not. So I just want to ask the audience a few questions. How many of you thought you wanted to be doctors growing up? Okay. How many policemen? Teachers? How about lawyers? I'm not the only one in the room. And then how many of you knew you wanted to be in construction? A designer, architect, or contractor? 1, 2. That's amazing, right? But all of us are in this room. All of us are here today, and something led us here. So for me, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on how I arrived at where I am today. So as I sought out career options over my childhood, I went on a roller coaster ride of choices. And don't laugh too hard at me when I share some of these things with you. So you may have noticed that I raised my hand for being a lawyer, and I can't really tell you where that started, but, well, kind of sort of, because towards the end here, but I felt like that was the place where I wanted to be. I had some interactions through my childhood. I saw people do things that they shouldn't have done, and I was determined to actually put those folks behind bars at some point in my life, right? That didn't quite work out. So realistically for me, what changed that, you're going to really laugh, what changed that for me. But does anyone remember the TV show America's Most Wanted? Yeah. So I used to sneak and watch it. My mom was sitting in the room. I can say this now, I'm an adult. I used to sneak and watch it, and needless to say, I should not have done that for 2 reasons. Number 1, scary movies are definitely not at the top of my list, because I'm the person who generally has nightmares. My husband asks me to go watch scary movies all the time, and I say absolutely not. And America's Most Wanted has a lot to do with that. And so, really, seeing those interactions with the lawyers being blamed for how people ended up in jail, and stories of how they were hurt, it's like, you know what? I'm not cut out for this. So, and not to mention, all I saw was, a lawyer fighting civil and family issues. There was nothing else to So I decided that wasn't my career choice and moved on to the next thing. So from there, I, probably, this is, I would say right before middle school. So get into middle school, trying to figure out, again, what it is I want to do. And because I attended Cincinnati Public Schools, I was exposed to a multitude of individuals. I was really blessed in that area to be able to experience, people of different races, different backgrounds, different experiences. And so with that, I was able to prepare myself for what was to come in my future. And not everyone necessarily has that. But I was able to look at the world differently from my home environment versus what school looked like. And so where I struggled was the individual in school was slightly different from the individual who was at home. And so at home, I ran with the boys and outside playing, and I had an older brother, so run faster, jump higher, and hit harder than all the boys that he hung around, right? And so in school, on the other hand, I was recognized as the little girl who wore glasses, who was really smart, and let's be clear, not glasses, bifocals, kids were cruel. So, but I held true to that all the way through high school. And so, recognizing obviously that, being smart was important, it also helped me to realize just two really important skills in myself. One, being competitive, because remember, I want to jump higher, run faster than any of those boys. And so I always have remained competitive. And then secondly, just being sophisticated, learning how to behave appropriately in different situations. So as I going to middle school, one of the things that I decided to try was playing basketball. Yes, the petite me, no, you're not allowed to call me short. Felt like I was going to be successful on the basketball court. I would tell you, I thought I sucked. But my coach saw differently in me, and she felt like, you're willing to give it a try, you're willing to give it your all, I want you to be point guard. And I learned a lot from being in that position, even though, I feel like I was not the greatest. But I did take that position and ran with it. So I remember my mom buying the goggles, and what a waste of money, because like I said, after that year, I was like, yeah, that's not I don't want to get hit in the face. I'm not good at jumping the ball and shooting it. Yeah, I'm not coordinated. So decided to move on from that. So then I moved into high school, and obviously, again, like I said, I've always been really good at staying focused in my studies, and so I did well in school. And so there were a lot of mentors or teachers that I had that were recognized that skill set, and so really pushed me in areas where I didn't necessarily see the good in myself. So not being athletic, I decided that I would try to focus on something else in my career choice, and still not knowing what that was, I had one specific instructor who thought he found something in me that I should basically run with, and that was my advanced chemistry teacher. And so he challenged me to basically take the advanced chemistry test. In the high school I went to, Withrow High School, it was called the IB exam. Most of you are probably familiar with AP, so it's very similar to that. And so he insisted, and I really mean insisted, by calling my mother and telling her that I was going to take this exam, that I take this IB exam. And I still had no interest in that career, and mainly because I had no idea what being a chemical engineer looked like. I didn't know what that was, I didn't know what it meant, and I saw my teacher, Mr. Weiner, as just that, a teacher. And so I knew, for me, I never wanted to be a teacher, and the thought of being a chemical engineer was just not something that I wanted to consider, for that matter. So he still pushes me anyhow, and asked me to participate in 2 programs over 2 consecutive summers, one being the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Program, and the other one being the M2 SE program, which was actually held over the summer at UC's Otis campus. And so not involved with the construction management program, but it was all about introducing students who had strength in the math and science area to career options, and be able to take a summer course where basically I took some physics and math and science over. I don't remember how long it was, but I want to say it was maybe 4 weeks. That's how long the program was. so, again, still considering that I should consider chemical engineering, pushed me a little bit more, and I just said, not for me. So it was at that point that I basically started questioning myself as I started to round out my high school years. What was it that I needed to do with my career? I had no idea. I really had no idea. And so, thanks to my parents, they started really helping me to focus on the things that they thought I was really good at. One of them was being a hairstylist. So I used to like to do hair. I absolutely don't like to now. And so, said, consider that. Or my mom and my dad over the years used a lot of free child labor to build furniture at home. So she's like, you're really good at putting things together. She still reminds me of this today.
She was hoping that.
And so, through that, I decided maybe I do need to look at something that allows me to build. And so I went on to say, well, maybe architecture is the option for me. So it was at that point I decided, okay, that's what it is. I'm going to go to school and be an architect. Well, little did I know, I made that decision in July of 1999. Yes, I said July. School starts in September at that time. That I was going to go to school and sign up to be an architect. And when I applied to UC's DAC, of course, that wasn't happening because it was way too late to get into the architecture program. And so at that time, they said to me, why don't you consider a degree in architectural engineering technology, which is similar, and then if you really like the program, you can consider transferring into DAC's program. And so I said, okay, well, and they also told me it was at OCUS, at College of Applied Science. So I said, I'm familiar with the campus, I like the summer program I went through, let's give it a try. So I started in September of 1999, and a year and a half in, thanks to the co-op program. For those of you who have experienced the co-op program, we know how great that is for someone who's trying to figure out where they want to be. And so, year and a half into the program, 2 co-op experiences, I said, yeah, this isn't for me. And mainly because I have a type A personality, and I wanted to be in the action, right? I wanted to be somewhere doing something, engaging with people. I didn't want to be sitting at a desk and doing red lines, essentially, is what that career option was at that time, if I hadn't gone on to get an architecture degree. And let me back up and say, because I've shared this with a couple people this evening, I am not good at drawing. So why I chose architecture, I have no clue. Those design skills are really not there. I mean, they're very minimal. And so I decided at that time, I was actually a single parent. I had my son in high school and decided I couldn't start my college career over. It was a 5-year program, and to extend that was just not meaningful for my family. And so, with that being said, started exploring and trying to figure out what I was going to do next, because I knew that I didn't want to stay in architecture. And so I actually set out a summer before, well, let's be honest. I didn't sit out the whole summer. I signed up for a C++ class thinking that I was going to go to computer engineering. I showed up day 1 and I said, oh no, that's out. Now, the funny thing is, I'm doing that today, just so you know. I'm learning how to write C++. So that's funny that I found it to be absolutely uninteresting, and now I'm ready to learn and eager to learn to try to make things work within our company. But, so that year and a half in, decided that program wasn't for me, and talking to a friend who actually was a co-op at Messer at the time, he now owns his own business, he recommended to me, why don't you consider construction management? And I said, I don't know about that. Because the thing that, I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with UC's program, but the architecture students and the construction management students essentially start on the same path. And so I was in the classroom with a lot of the men that were going through the program, and they had knowledge that I just didn't have. And so I felt really uncomfortable for the first time in my life in not being able to excel at something that I thought, why can't I do this? And so he convinced me, and I said, you know what, why not? At this point, I don't want to start my college career over. Let's learn what's there for me. What is it to offer in that area? And so, thanks to Mr. Steve Eater, who's not here this evening, I thought he would be here, but he actually took a chance on this timid 20-year-old girl who didn't know. I didn't know what was going to happen for me from that point forward. And I will tell you that has been almost 16 years ago. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that he was willing to take a chance on me. And it definitely allowed me to grow to be where I I am today. But that's where, for me, that's where it starts. For this industry to consider that meaningful inclusion is that you have to be willing to take a chance on someone. Because not everyone knows that this is where they want to be at the end of the day and don't know what value they bring to it. So there were people who recognized my skill set and said, bring that skill set to construction. How does, how do you be, or how are you successful by doing that? So you're probably wondering why I shared all this history and how I got here. So I shared this background to prove, again, that not everyone is successful or understands what their future looks like. And mainly that's because a couple different reasons. One, you just don't recognize it yourself. Two, you don't have the family and or mentorship to support you and being able to recognize that. Or three, you just haven't been introduced to what's there. And so that's where I feel like I want to challenge this group. So I was asked often early in my career how it felt to work in a male-dominated industry. And no offense to the men in the room, but I didn't see that as a challenge necessarily. Because what I saw was a group of people who wanted to be successful in the same industry I wanted to be successful in. And so I use that as an opportunity to be able to connect with people and to grow and learn from it. So my type A personality says, I'm a game changer, and I'm gonna go for what I want. So I try really hard to do that. So, but even with that said, I would be untruthful in saying I never experienced the negativity associated with being a woman in the industry. But for me, and I'm sure like most of you, I'm always up for the challenge. But even in those hard days, right, you get up and you do it again the next day. So I've come to realize that these challenges come from a place of misunderstanding. And the best way to combat them is to educate, to prove the thoughts to be invalid by working really hard at what you do. This is partially accomplishable by increasing the number of women and underrepresented individuals that are in our industry. So I took a moment to actually just do some research myself and figure out, is the construction industry, what are our commitments there? And so according to Sam Carradine, which is a founding member of the ABC National Diversity Committee, there are 6 reasons why a construction industry should embrace diversity. And I will admit that I was surprised by the second one. So if you allow me to read through them for you. The first one is the construction workforce is rapidly becoming more diverse, regardless of whether companies decide to promote workplace diversity or not. The second is the one that was really surprising me. There's a marked demographic shift in construction companies' ownership towards minorities and women. In a region where we're still working really hard to get those companies engaged, I was just really shocked to hear that from the report. Companies already implementing diversity initiatives in workforce development and joint ventures, subcontracting find that such initiatives add value to their companies. Diversity is a key driver, the fourth one, diversity is a key driver of innovation and is a critical component of being successful on a global scale. A diverse and inclusive workforce and diverse strategic partnerships are crucial for companies that want to attract and retain top talent and grow their businesses. And then the sixth one is companies that adapt first to this inevitability of a more diverse workforce and construction ownership environment will reap a competitive advantage. So it's important. Every statement is important. So what are the next steps for this group? So, and where does it start with our next generation? I'm gonna throw one word out there, dreams. So I was a part of a conference a couple months ago where a woman spoke who was the VP of Walt Disney Operations. And she talked specifically about dreams. And I debated on whether I was gonna share the video tonight. If you get a moment, go out there and take a look at it. Walt Disney has a program called the Dreamers Program. And this is obviously not a plug for Disney, but I just think that the work they're doing is really great. And so they have a program they've put on. This is the 10th year they've done it. They take on 100 high school students, bring them down, and allow them to dream up whatever career choice they have. And they give them the setting to actually perform in that area or that field. So they have, doctors, and talking to her, they have very limited exposure to the math and science industry, but they're trying to grow that STEM is where I was looking, I'm sorry. In the STEM industry, but they're looking to grow grow that and being able to allow students to be able to engage more in those spaces, especially at a time when that's somewhat been the focus. So the intent of the program is to teach our youth how to dream, and then basically take that dream and put it into action. Don't just do it while you're there for the weekend, but what are you going to do with it when you leave there? And so wouldn't it be amazing if we had something similar to that in construction? And the reality is we do. Rosie's Girls. Rosie's Girls does that. It gives them the introduction to the construction industry. But what do we do after Rosie's Girls? What happens from that point forward? How do we keep those students engaged? And so I think that that's really important. That's really important for this group to consider. But there's not just Rosie's Girls, there's ACE Mentoring, and there's a ton of other programs out there. But I think that it's important that we share what the construction industry has done for us and how it will be meaningful for them. And so there's three main things that I felt, for me, have allowed me to stay in the industry, or for me to really gain what I needed, not just for myself, but for my family, and then also then being able to get back to my company. There's three main things: flexibility, growth, and financial freedom. So for me, I come from, not a large financial background, and so I hope to change that. I hope to change that for my children and then their children and so on and so forth. And so there's an opportunity to do that in construction. But do we share that story? Do we share that information with the students that we engage with? If you're not, I ask that you do. There's still this stigma about construction, and that it's only intended for those who want to, go to work and work really hard every day as far as on their body, the hard work on their body. And that's not true. That's changing, and most of you in this room know that. So I would say, as you look to engage with those individuals and those who come from various backgrounds, those who have different experiences than you, share with them your story. Share with them what it is that has worked for you over the years, what you've been able to get out of construction, why has it been meaningful to you, what it brings back to not just you, but to your family. Because that's the big piece for them. So even as we look at Craft Force, it's the same thing. They have the opportunity to make the money, a good, meaningful wage, and then be able to bring that back to their families. And that's really important. Sharing with women and underrepresented groups that they have meaningful value in the field opens the door to partaking in these diverse conversations as well, and providing them with the same possibilities or that flexibility, growth, and financial freedom. I was a little alarmed by a statistic that I heard a couple weeks ago at Tuskegee University. So they shared that there are only 446 African American students in architecture programs across the entire nation in accredited colleges. And that number is only slightly higher for women. And they assume the numbers to be even less for construction management. I think we have something great to offer. And so we just need to work to figure out, how do we get those people, how do we get people engaged? How do we get people interested in the careers? And so I try to do that in every space that I can, and just consider doing that. Not that you have to pull everybody aside, but think about that. And so the last thing that I will say, I hear a lot of times, and I've even heard myself being guilty, or I've been guilty of this myself, but sometimes we say, oh, it's hard work, puts in a lot of hours, especially if you're a mom, you want to take that away from your children, but it's also done something for you. And so share that story. What has it done for you successfully? Because I think that that's meaningful to someone else. So don't think about the negative. I said to my children, I'm not sure I want you to consider going in construction, but that should not be a statement that I have made, because I feel that there is something meaningful here. And I want them to know that, and I want every other student that I engage with, or child that I engage with, to know that same thing. So I found that people in our industry are very competitive, right? Mm-hmm. Whether that be winning a bid, making the best coffee. I know nothing about it because I don't make coffee, I don't drink coffee. Don't laugh at me, because people are like, you made it this long in construction? Mm-hmm. Yes. I will tell you, in college, I drank a lot of Mountain Dew. I was just looking at a program from a bulletin, actually, from the college from 2003, 2004. Somehow, I ended up on the front of that bulletin, and I pulled it out the other day because a friend of mine was asking about a friend that I was in school with. And in the picture, there is a Code Red Mountain Dew sitting right in front of the bulletin. I'm like, oh, that sounds terrible. I would not drink that stuff today. But anyhow, my point is, we're very competitive. And so I challenge you to be just as competitive competitive in those spaces with students, as you share your stories, as you and try to get them engaged in the construction industry. Let's be that group that makes that change. Let's really make the difference in that youth. So here are some things to consider doing. I have 4 things that I want to leave with the group. Share the goodness of what success looks like, and be candid in your conversations about what it is that you've been able to do in construction. Volunteer your time where you can with elementary, middle school, and high school students, being a role model. So I feel like we have a lot of space where we've engaged with high school students, but there is still this opportunity for the youth. Because for me, I know those teachers probably made more impact than the high school students did for me. The high school teachers did for me. Because they just kind of left that mark, about who I was gonna be. I'll share one quick thing actually. I just thought about something. I'll never forget this. My 6th grade English teacher graded my first spelling test. I don't know if her mom remembers this or not. I had never received anything less than a B in my entire life. Let's just say I got a D. I said, I'm not taking that home to my mom. Well, in open house, she clearly pulled it out. And she's like, I know that Gloria can do better, and I need her to do better. And that just was ingrained in me, right? And it's a thing that I remember. Whenever I see her, that's the one thing we talk about all the time. And so I just feel like, again, when you're younger, when you're in that elementary or middle school, you just leave an impression that children tend to remember in lieu of just high school, I'm getting to know my friends. The third thing is volunteer and support our industry organizations. So Rosie's Girl is one of those. There's actually an event next Thursday for ACI Tech Expo. Am I saying it correctly? Get out to those events, support them. There are students that sometimes attend those events, and so it's really good to be able to interact with those students. And then lastly, but most importantly, believe in yourself and what you bring to the table, because that's really important to be able to share your story with those students. And so I have one quote I'll leave you with. This is a personal quote, but be a trailblazer in giving construction a facelift to include more women and underrepresented individuals like myself. We can't change our tomorrow if we don't start with today. Thank you all.